Did you ever think that growing up was something that would just happen to you someday? I used to think adulthood happened all at once. Like you hit a certain age, you start your career, and boom, finally you're a real grown up. But that's not how my life has been at all. And a lot of times it leaves me feeling like I'm behind or I'm doing something wrong. So I want to talk about that today in this video, hoping that it might connect with something you've experienced or something you're currently experiencing. I think the root cause of feeling like we're behind in life for a lot of us started a long time ago when we were small. All the adults would always ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? When you're little, you answer something like, oh, an astronomer, a doctor, a race car driver. Nothing stopping you from being whatever you want to be. But something about that question of who do you want to be when you grow up is a little bit problematic. For one thing, it suggests that there is a certain time in which you are suddenly grown up, like it's a concrete barrier that you pass, and then you've entered the realm of growing up. And the other thing is that it suggests that this being will be tied into your career, and it will be just one thing. So whether it's a doctor or a firefighter or a policeman, whatever it is, that is your identity. Your career is your identity, and that is who you will be. And, while it's just more of a fun question to ask kids and not something that you necessarily have to take so seriously, I think I personally did take it a bit seriously. Of course, my answer changed a lot as I grew up, but I did always feel a bit of a pressure to know that my career was going to be who I am, and that until I started on that track or until I started being that thing, I wasn't a full person. I wasn't a true being. We've been trained in school ever since we were little that our jobs will be our lives, and that is where we will find our meaning, and that's what will make us whole. And even at a young age, I do think that felt pretty heavy. I always knew that there was going to be some day in the future in which I was suddenly going to be a being, and I needed to get my stuff together before that day happened. It sets up the belief that there is one path to follow, and you better start following that path to being and reaching your full level of productivity and your full value as a human. And it makes you wonder who really benefits from humans equating their value with their productivity. And the answer is capitalism and our society. It's no wonder that from a young age, they want to teach us that our jobs and our productivity is where we're going to find meaning and be our whole selves. Because that benefits them. That benefits the people in power. The top 1% would love us to keep working. Especially in the US, there is that hustle culture. The more you do, putting in those 80-hour weeks is very encouraged and seen as a good thing. And a lot of people seem to really find meaning in their career. And of course, there's nothing wrong with that. There are careers that bring meaning, and that's great. But when it becomes the whole you, it is really scary to have your identity wrapped up in just your career. And it also means that if you don't achieve that goal you had for yourself, that it's taken away and you don't really know who you are. So it's no wonder that a lot of times people fall into mental health problems and depression after big work troubles, because we were told from when we were little that that is where our value lies, in our career and our jobs and our successes. So not only do our title and our achievements and work become the scoreboard in which we're measuring ourselves against, but there's also comparison. And these days, it's so easy to get on social media and see what everybody else is doing. And as you know, they're usually posting the highlights reel. If things are going wrong, you won't hear from them. But any big milestones that they reach in their career, in their life, in their relationships, their travels, you will, a lot of times that's all you see. So it can feel like everybody else has got it figured out and you're just behind and you don't know what you're doing. The idea that there is a locked in linear path for your life to follow is a complete myth. And it's one that I held on to for far too long. In college, I really beat myself up for not knowing what I wanted to do. And even now afterwards, I still feel sometimes like a failure for not achieving this and completing these milestones I had locked into my head that would give me value as a human being. What you don't often see on social media and what they don't tell you growing up is that life is not linear. There is no one set path. There will be twists and turns. There will be things completely outside of your control. And those things might be on a national, global scale, things that we personally cannot control just ourselves, things like climate change, diseases, example, COVID-19. There's those things. And then even on smaller scales, like things that happen in our family, friendships and relationships, stuff that we don't have full control over. There will always be twists and turns in life, and it will go in ways that you never expected, for better and for worse. But what this reminds me of is those very tall skyscrapers that kind of sway in the wind, and it freaks you out when you're up there looking down. You're like, this should not be swaying in the wind, but it's actually better that it does. So when I Googled, why do tall buildings need to be able to sway a little bit? AI said, tall buildings must sway slightly to absorb forces from wind and earthquakes. If they were perfectly rigid, these forces would build up, causing severe structural damage or collapse. Flexibility allows them to dissipate energy safely, much like a tree bending in the wind. And I think that really applies to humans so much. We're not meant to be stiff and unmoving. We need to be flexible or else we will collapse. We need to be able to sway and let life take shape in ways that we never expected. That is the way to be human, and that is the way to live. And another way to think about it is that with all these twists and turns, a lot of times you get to start over in life. At any age, there can be different restarts, shift in careers and relationships and cities and experiences, all these things. And rather than seeing that as something terrible and you failed in your path of life, it can be refreshing and exciting to not completely know what's going to happen next and know that the future is not fully defined. We have to give ourselves permission to let life change direction and to let new things take shape. And so holding so tightly to what you thought was going to be your reality just doesn't serve you well at all. And we can tell ourselves, yes, I will be okay. This is just a turn. And maybe we can reframe it into something that we're kind of interested in or curious in how it's going to take shape, rather than beating ourselves up for not living the life that we thought we were going to live 5 years ago. Another aspect I want to talk about is redefining what success means to you. Of course, we have that idea that we've been taught since we were little that success means having a good career and working 40 hours a week until your retirement. Maybe instead of asking, who do you want to be when you grow up? It's a better idea to ask, what do you want your life to feel like? We can think about our values, what matters to us, not what society tells us matters, but what actually matters to us. So maybe you want a life that lets you travel. You want a life that lets you spend time with your friends every week, and that's important to you. Or maybe it could be something like you want a life someday where you don't have to wake up to an alarm clock. And of course, we're all going to have to do things in life that we don't want to do. Hard times, hard periods of just pushing through. But if you know your values and what matters to you, that can give you something to aim for that feels more worthwhile rather than just some nebulous goal of being a productive person and climbing the ladder in your career. And at the same time, as you're planning ahead and trying to build a life that feels meaningful to you, it's important to reground yourself in the present and kind of zoom in on what your life is like right now. Because often there are small things already happening in day-to-day life that actually bring meaning and joy, but we're just not trained to focus on that because it feels more mundane. We're supposed to be focusing always on the future. But if you take a moment and kind of think through things that happen on a day-to-day basis that do bring happiness and contentment, and yeah, it might not be some big success story, but it's stuff that feels meaningful to you. So for me, I love trying to feed the outdoor cats on my porch. And yes, I am that crazy cat lady, the strays. It just brings me a lot of joy to feed them and take care of them. There's so many things, interactions on a day-to-day basis that we overlook because we're told that's not important to our success and our big life goal and life plan. But there is happiness and contentment to be found right now. Your life is already happening right now while you're waiting for it to start. I personally used to feel some guilt in the back of my mind as I was doing some kind of hobby or activity that I would enjoy in the present, but I felt like it wasn't contributing to my long term goal or it wasn't keeping me on track for my linear life plan. So as I'm sitting there reading a novel in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, but you should be doing XYZ. I think this makes a lot of sense. If you've ever felt that way, if you've ever felt guilty for where you are in life, it's a totally valid feeling. And what I try to do is take a step back and think, what is actually leading me to feel this way, and to kind of retrain those brain connections to be like, I'm enjoying myself right now. I am finding contentment in reading this book, and that's okay. Period. It takes a lot of time to retrain your brain that way, but it's better now than later. A lot of times you see these really old folks who are still so focused on making money until their very last days. And then they kind of look around and realize that they haven't loved as much as they could have in life. And I'm sure that they wished that they had thought about their true values and what matters to them much sooner in life. I encourage you to ask yourself, what do I truly want versus what do I think I'm supposed to want? This is something I'm still unraveling myself, but it's helpful to remember that what you find meaningful is something that nobody can take away from you. And you're not behind in life, you're just a human being. So I'm so glad that we have each other to lean on, and the fact that we don't have to do this life thing alone can be really relieving too. So I'd love to know, what is something that you thought you had to be when you were younger? And what is something that is actually bringing you meaning right now? Thank you so much for watching. My name is Michelle. Please hit the like and subscribe, and I will connect again with you soon.